All right, thank you. Good evening, everybody. This is the Wednesday, February 25th, 2026 meeting of the City of Somerville Community Preservation Committee. I'm the chair, Ryan Kierkoff. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025, this meeting of the Somerville Community Preservation Committee will be conducted via remote participation. We'll have a video recording available upon request as soon as possible after the meeting. Roberta, could you please call the roll?
Yes. David,
Yes.
Michael is not here. Rona, we can't hear. Oh, you're muted, Rona.
So sorry, I'm here.
Thank you. And back to my agenda. Joe,
Yeah.
John,
Here.
Mary Jo,
Here?
and I see Carlos is not here.
I am here actually.
You are okay. I didn't see you come in.
No,
And Eric
I'm here.
and Ryan.
Yes. Thank
Great.
you very much. Our first item on the agenda is the approval of minutes from both December and January of 25 and 26 respectively. Anyone with questions or comments about the draft minutes as presented? Okay, hearing none. Can I have a motion? First, I think we have to do these separately, correct, Roberta? Can I have a
Correct.
motion to approve the minutes as drafted for the December 29th, 2025 meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. And I can second that because I can't remember who else was there that day. It wasn't many of us. So it may be a reduced crew voting on this, Roberta. But anyways, I'll second it.
Okay. And I will call the roll. Uh, David,
yes.
Rona,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
John,
I'm going to abstain.
Mary Jo,
Yes?
Carlos,
I'm also going to abstain.
Eric,
Yes.
and Ryan.
Yes.
All
Thank you
right,
very
motion
much.
passes.
If no other comments, I would also invite a motion to approve the minutes as drafted for January 28th, 2026.
I can make that motion.
Thank you. And a second.
Okay, I
I'm
can
happy to
second.
second. Oh, there you go, Rona. You got
Rona
it.
wins.
I win. I was first.
All right.
You got me.
Roberta,
All
please
right,
call the roll.
David,
Yes.
Rona,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Mary Jo,
Yes?
Carlos,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
and Ryan.
Yes. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next item. This is the continued deliberations on our fiscal year 26 funding round. We have 4 items to consider. There are really 2 applications, our last 2 applications that came in the door, those being from the Somerville Museum and the Open Space Acquisition Fund. And then we have 2 kind of add-on items to discuss as we round out, hopefully finish the current funding round discussions tonight. They are to provide any supplemental funding to the Affordable Housing Trust, as we've talked about in previous meetings. And finally, to the extent that there are funds available, to consider amending the Kennedy schoolyard recommendation that we made back in December, in which we could consider moving some of or allocating some of our current funds beyond the $1 million that we've already committed to that project immediately rather than bonding for it for those dollars, thereby reducing the amount that we're bonding and reducing the effects on future budgets. But we can cross that bridge when we get to it. We can start by talking about the Somerville Museum. I'll note that these the 2 pending applications before us from the museum and the Open Space Acquisition Fund were rated the 2 lowest priority items among the 9 or 10 that came in the door this year. Not to say that they are not worthy, but they were the 2 lowest rankings. So good that we have them at this stage in the process. The combination of the 2, I'll remind folks, are for $300,766. And that, like I said, that's the last of the funds that were requested explicitly in our funding round. So, museum request was for $100,766. We heard the presentation from the Somerville Museum and saw that this money is requested for a wide variety of items in their collection, furniture and paintings and other items as memory serves. So I'll stop there. Anyone with comments or thoughts about this application from the Somerville Museum? Anyone adamantly against or that would not be interested in funding this as requested?
I had a question more out of curiosity, because I don't have the institutional memory that a lot of you that have been on the committee longer have. Is this the first time that the museum has had this type of a request relative to their permanent collection, or is that typical of the kinds of things? I know once it was the staircase, or other types of things like that, but is it common or typical for them to have artifacts within their collection, and this type of a request is what they do?
I can answer that question for you. For several years, the museum was working on building renovation projects, which were the focus of several rounds of CPA funding requests. Having wrapped up the really critical components of their building renovations, they've turned their attention to artifacts. So the last funding round had a couple of architectural elements that were um, grouped in with artifacts that included the staircase and the railing, the exterior railing to the building. But then they also made, they've restored several paintings and frames from their collections already in the last one or two funding rounds. So this is the first funding round that was only artifacts and no building components.
And I'll note something that's recognized in the budget document and probably within the application itself, but the Historic Preservation Committee did vote back in October of last year to officially recognize these artifacts as significant to Somerville's history. Eric, I don't know if you have any additional comments on that or if that's kind of all there is to say on the matter, but any thoughts on this as our historic expert?
I don't think so. It's obviously not usually what we review as things rather than buildings. But the case was made that they're relevant to local history. They're pictures of famous, well-known people or places, or the case of the desk, it's like a local company that was famous for doing that. I forgot what it was called. A certain kind of a desk there. The
A Derby Desk Company.
Derby desk.
That's
Yep.
right.
Was over there where the foam place is now, and the artist studio. So it's all relevant locally. And to me, it kind of boils down to whether we, not to digress a little bit, but the budget, I think we've looked at that, and funding these things doesn't put us in a particular hole. It sort of keeps us stable with the reserve we want to keep, assuming funds become available later in the year that are supposed to become available. So it really boils down to whether we view these as something we would ever want to fund or not. I don't think we're having to really sharpen our pencil horribly in this case.
Yeah, I think that's a good note, Eric, that we talked in our last meeting to some extent about if we were to fully fund all of the applications in front of us, we would still have available to start next year the reserve of around 750,000 that we typically aim to roll into the subsequent year without issue. Now, in a in light of what I introed earlier, where we're debating reducing our dependency upon bond capacity to cover the Kennedy School, um, there's some scarcity mentality that we can be applying due to that. But by and large, I agree with what you're saying here. We're not in a terribly precarious situation with the apps we have in front of us. So anybody else with reasons that they would not fund this in full based upon the request and the estimates that are based on the conservators that would do this work? All right, maybe that's simple as. So can we, Roberta, see the draft um, decision or recommendation so we can look and see if there's any wording we would want to include?
So this is the draft recommendation for the Somerville Museum artifacts, lists the artifacts, and describes why this is eligible. And the recommendation would be for $100,766. And the funding condition that we've placed on prior grants that are for artifacts is that artifacts that have been preserved using CPA funds may not be sold or disposed of without first obtaining city approval.
Great. To me, nothing objectionable there. This seems relatively straightforward. The one other thing I just wanted to flag before we move to any motions or voting tonight was that, typically when we're debating these quote unquote lower in our list of priority projects, we are doing so with an eye to any straggler out of round applications that may come in the door, which has been something that's been helpful and important to us in previous years. We had the clock tower restoration from Somerville City Hall that we were able to fund down the stretch of one fiscal year due to the fact that we had protected some money to cover it. All that said, I know it feels like we're in the middle of a extremely long, cold winter, but after this meeting, there are only 4 meetings left in the fiscal year, which ends on June the 30th. And probably, Roberta, correct me if I'm wrong, 2, maybe 3, in which we could be voting on funds that city council can then subsequently vote and turn around before the end of the fiscal year. So that's all just to say that the window for us to consider any out of round applications is getting late in the game already, which does give me some comfort about voting to allocate these funds and leaving just our requested reserve in terms of dry powder. So hopefully that makes sense to everybody. Let me know if not. I'll stop there. But anything else that folks want to talk about before we move to a motion for this? Okay, with that, can I have a motion to approve this recommendation as drafted?
I'll make the motion.
Okay. I'll
And a
second it.
second. Thank you very much. Roberta, can you please call the roll?
Yep. Let me just stop the share so I can see you all again. And David,
Yes.
Rona,
You're muted, Rona.
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Mary Jo,
Yes.
Carlos,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
and Ryan.
Yes.
All right, motion passes.
Thank you very much, everybody. Okay, next item is the Open Space Acquisition Fund on behalf of PSUF. This is a use of funds that most folks here are familiar with. They've been a frequent flyer in this program for several years now, and it's one that this group has supported pretty consistently. I know we heard the presentation from Lisa and others. I don't know, John, anything you want to add or refresh folks' memories on, and just in terms of like the current status of this fund, of what it looks like in the months or years ahead? Anything along those lines?
Yeah, I can definitely give a little bit of background because I know Rona, this is kind of your first time hearing about this. So first a little background and then just some conversation that Roberta and I were having today about this funding this year. So each year the Public Space and Urban Forestry Department comes to the CPC requesting some funds for our Open Space and Acquisition Fund. The Open Space and Acquisition Fund gives us the flexibility to purchase property that becomes available, and gives us that flexibility and freedom to kind of jump on an opportunity very quickly because CPA money is flexible in that sense. And so this gives us a lot of flexibility on buying parcels next to open space that we already have so we can expand open space. It also helps us kind of buy additional space and work with developers to increase pops, those type of things. So that's a little bit of background on the item. I don't know how much is currently in the bank right now. Roberta, I don't know if you can answer this question for me or
It's
if this is something you wanted to.
$800,000.
$800,000. So this brings me to my other point that Somerville is a very expensive place to purchase property in. Acreage, we're looking at like 21,000 or $21 million per acre to buy open space. Obviously, we can't get an acre of land in that giant of a chunk. It's smaller parcels. It's 0.16 acres. It's larger parcels in some like industrial areas. But we don't have a ton in the bank. So each year we come to the CPA with this application, but it is entirely your discretion to fund it or not fund it each year. So if you feel that there are certain priority projects like the Kennedy School or like other projects that you feel like this money could be better spent this year, that is entirely the CPA's choice. And I really encourage you all to kind of think heavily about that because some years we haven't funded it. I believe 2 years ago we didn't fund the Open Space and Acquisition Fund. Some years we do, but we haven't yet made big purchases yet with it. So I do kind of want the CPA to think what is best to use their money on, especially with kind of a tight budget this year. And I'll leave it
Understood.
at that.
Thanks, John. That's great background. David.
Yeah, I have a statement and a question, if I can be maybe indulged.
Please.
Regarding the statement, I think I brought up at a previous meeting when this was first discussed that my preference and recommendation would be that the city actually request more than this on an annual basis, especially with our increasing budget toward open space. And as you're noting, John, we always have the discretion to give less, but we do not have the opportunity to give more. And I know when we talked about it last time, you had already kind of looked at the other numbers and you had kind of made a informal calculation that this was a reasonable request given the other, but I'm actually kind of suggesting you not do that, and let us do that in deliberations, and decide ourselves. We can't give you the $1 million you asked for. We can only give you 200,000. So that's the statement. Question is what the procedure would be for the city to tap into these funds.
So that's where we have our open space acquisition study fund, and that along with working with the Economic Development Department, who works with the Somerville Redevelopment Authority, kind of reviews all different parcels that come available. There are some parcels that the city has first right of refusal on. There are some parcels that people are trying to just sell, and they're near open space or near development that we kind of work on trying to expand. So those are the type of resources that we use to kind of investigate these properties. There's a few people from the economic development team that really assist me in kind of acquiring these properties, like Ken Kelly Park, 217 Somerville Ave. That was acquired from the city purchasing that property when it came available on the market. And so the economic development team worked with the legal team and um, did some surveying and some investigations of the site to determine that it was a useful or valuable site to the city, and then used funds to purchase it.
Did the seller approach the city, or did the city basically peruse the real estate listings and decide it wanted that property?
I believe for 217 Somerville Ave, it was kind of a community input. I believe that there was some development proposed there, or at least some talks about it. And then Councillor Scott worked with a few other members of the community to kind of bring it to the city's attention that we should be interested in acquiring that property.
Is, right. Is this something that's addressed in the city's open space plan? Is how to identify and acquire, these
Yes.
sort of parcels?
Yes, there is. And kind of like I was mentioning before, kind of some of our biggest goals are if the larger parcels that we have gives us the flexibility to program more things like athletic fields, like larger playgrounds and whatnot. So any opportunity to buy a parcel next to an existing park is a key priority for us, or any of those areas that are just large parcels in themselves. Those would be kind of key opportunities for us to acquire.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks both. Rona?
Yeah, I have sort of a, again, newbie question,
Mhm.
which is that it's one of the priorities is to make sure that people who are asking for money have other people they're asking, so they're not totally dependent on us. And I don't know exactly how this fund works in terms of that. In other words, how else do you get money to buy land in Somerville?
Okay, so
Yeah.
we would look at other grant opportunities, sometimes working with developers when we're working on POPs. If we
Okay.
can kind of expand their POPs by helping purchase a little sliver parcel or trying to rearrange some space, we can help in that regard.
And POPs, I don't know if you define that, but publicly owned public space,
Property.
privately owned public space. Is that right? Yeah, okay.
Correct.
Roberta, did you have something you wanted to add to that?
Sure, a couple little things that I could add. First, the I would imagine that if an opportunity to acquire open space came up, the city has acquired parcels of open space in recent history using city funds. And so the funds that have been put into this open space reserve would provide a little bit more of a guarantee that funding is available at a given time that could be tapped from this source, where it might not be available at the moment that it comes up from other city sources. And the other thing I wanted to mention was that in addition to the open space and recreation plan, a few years ago, a team that included members of PSAF, economic development team, and other city staff, a working group put together a study on how do we identify parcels to acquire. And I think that that is referenced in the open space and recreation plan. In any case, I try to keep track of that study because I think it has some useful information that could help to inform a decision.
Great, thank you. Any other questions or comments on this one?
Yeah, I had just so to clarify, practically speaking, let's say some dilapidated house becomes available. This could this money be used much more quickly than like if the city wants to acquire a pocket park someplace, would this money be something that could be spent fairly quickly to down payment or whatever? So I imagine that for the city to buy something, it's going to take a half a year, a year or something to get it all voted through and approved and all that.
So I've never used it before, but maybe I should just let Roberta speak.
So this money has the advantage that it doesn't have to go through, I mean, it's already set aside by the CPC, so it doesn't have to go through the CPC's approval process to make it available. But any property acquisition will still have to be approved by City Council. So there's no getting around a city council process to approve the acquisition of property.
Okay.
Okay. But they
But
don't necessarily, they don't have to fight over where the allocation's coming from.
True.
right. I thought the idea is that it is still more readily available than the city both having to find money and vote on it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. I mean, and this is a completely unresearched and me feeling it comment, but there's something about getting the balance of this fund to $1 million, which is what's proposed here, that feels like it should be substantial enough for exactly the scenario you described, Eric, at least. Whereas in Somerville, I mean, $800,000 feels a little more borderline to me. But in any case, I just feel like that may be a significant benchmark that makes me more interested in funding this.
Yeah.
Rona, is your hand? Is that a fresh question? All right, sorry.
Fresh question. So, is there any, this may be a your crazy Rona question, but is there any mechanism for which we could lay out, like that fund could lay out $500,000 and then the city council could vote to replenish it? Or is that just, because what I'm thinking is if this is the emergency fund for buying property, it could be a good tool, and I wouldn't want it to get um, used up and then have something even better come up. And I just don't know if how the mechanism works yet. Do you have any idea, or is this just a wacko thought?
I don't know that there is any way that the city council could be compelled to restore money to the CPA account after it's been spent.
Okay.
But
Is it,
but
is it,
to
I
your
want, I'm sorry.
but just real quick to your point, that's Rona why I'd like to, I mean, my hope with this would be that we would be constantly replenishing it or building up fast enough so that it's not a one-off.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah,
we're going to
that's
get one open space out of it. Which is why I made my earlier comment about the city being more ambitious in its request to us, so that
yeah.
we can put, any year that we're not 100% allocating our money, we can put it all into this fund.
Yeah, and having worked in residential real estate for 34 years in Somerville, $800,000 isn't going to get us anything we want. Um, so that was
Well,
my concern also.
well, also like Eric is saying, and I'm not sure, actually, John, maybe you're Roberta. I'm not sure if when the city purchases land, it's the same as if I purchase land where I can put $100,000 down or $200,000 down, or is the city expected to pay 100%, upfront? I don't know if they make down payments like a regular person does.
My assumption here would be that we would want to pay in full. Um, we could potentially bond, but then again, that slows it all down. And
Yeah.
with the housing market being as competitive as it is, unless we have first right of refusal, there's no, the clock is ticking, and other bidders can kind of overbid us and swoop in because it would take city council a long time to kind of vote on um, withdrawing those funds.
I had a quick question. Rona had characterized the fund as an emergency fund, and I wondered, is that really what it is? Is it more of a strategic fund? It's there to deploy when the opportunity presents itself rather than an emergency. But I didn't mean to get into the words. I just want to make sure I understand what it is better. And then also, um, is it easier just from history for the city to acquire things that are a little more irregular, not as developable? I know John was talking about the larger tracts. That's where we could have some real recreation. So true. But also some properties are a little too quirky to turn into housing. And that's what developers want to do. So is that kind of where this fund could be competitive? Because you're not going to see developers swooping in on those kind of quirky parcels.
Sorry, I cut out there for a second, but I believe you were talking about quirky parcels and
Yeah.
how we could. Yes, I think those are good opportunities, especially for our ecological work. Looking kind of at like remnant spaces that the MBTA kind of left over, those type of spaces. Obviously, not the ones owned by the MBTA, but the little exiled corners. Those are great ecological corridor habitat. Probably not people parks, but still good ecology for the greater city.
Thanks, Mary Jo. Thanks, John. Okay. Anybody that is not interested in funding this for $200,000 as requested? Any last questions? All right. Hearing none, I would love a motion to approve the. Actually, hang on. Sorry. Let's look at the draft. Let's look at the draft recommendation, just in case there's anything quirky here. I really doubt there is, but let's see. Nothing too special.
The funding
I have a quick question.
condition. Yeah, go ahead.
Is a perpetual conservation restriction the same as kind of the Article 97 protection, or is that something different?
So the Article 97 protection is an active state legislature could overturn the protection.
Well, I guess I'm
Whereas
wondering, does it get into that same category that
it is a
change
permanent,
use? It
both are considered to be permanent protection, but there's a different mechanism for making them permanent.
would
Uh,
would land which has a conservation restriction under Somerville law need Article 97 approval to repurpose it from this designated use? That's what I'm trying to ask.
I am not certain. Maybe John, I don't know if you know better, whether, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I'm not really as well versed on the conservation restriction and how
Okay.
those are added
So
or removed.
the conservation restriction is just like a preservation restriction. It would be attached to the deed and recorded at the Registry of Deeds, so that it would spell out a responsibility. We have one of these for a parcel that was acquired with CPA funds actually before the Open Space Acquisition Fund began. We acquired the I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the name of the street. The Glen Park Community Garden.
Mhm.
Um, that was a parcel that we
That
acquired.
final?
No,
No,
it's in East Somerville.
yeah,
Um,
and
Oh,
it
I'm sorry, the Glen Park one. Yeah, sorry.
yeah. So it was the conservation restriction is held by a third party, which is Somerville Groundworks. So when the city wanted to make improvements to the site, they actually had to request a review from Somerville Groundworks to
Okay.
approve the improvements that the city wanted to make. So that's the kind of responsibility that comes with there being a conservation restriction on the site. It restricts many kinds of improvements, and it allows specific types of improvements with approval of the third party holder of the restriction.
Okay.
And I'm
Because
not
I was trying to figure out if it's a lesser level of state protection than, like, say, a city park.
I think it's actually a greater level of state protection, and I'm
Okay.
not sure whether it would then automatically also get Chapter 97
That's kind of
protection.
that's what I was kind of getting at. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it may automatically come under Article 97, but I'm not totally sure about that. But it would also be permanently, I think it has a similar type of restriction.
And I apologize actually for bringing this up, because irrespective of that, I assume that we would want the language in this money to be the same as any restrictions we put on the other money we put into this fund,
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
because otherwise that would get very unwieldy.
Yeah.
yeah.
And the other thing that I should mention is that a permanent conservation restriction or whatever the applicable restriction is required of any property that's acquired with CPA funds. So that's why this condition has to be attached to the acquisition fund, because acquiring comes with that restriction.
So in defining what it is being conserved as, you said that there's a list of things that it cannot be, and there's a list of things that it can be, but it's the same condition whether we're, like John was mentioning, whether we're, this money is used to acquire land to make it a pollinator garden, is the same as if it's acquired to make a public basketball court. Like those are two obviously very different uses from an ecological standpoint. Is a basketball court being conserved? I don't know, but is it agnostic about that, or does it get defined at some point?
It's defined at some point. So we have
Okay.
a template for the conservation restriction, and I
Okay.
believe that there's a variation that allows for recreation improvements
Okay.
as
All right.
opposed to land that's acquired for conservation purposes.
Understood. I'm hearing that's not in our scope, and that's something that gets handled separately by the folks that are enforcing the restriction. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any last comments or questions on the draft here before we go for a motion? Okie doke. Can I have a motion to approve this as drafted?
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Second.
I'll second it.
Thanks, Eric. Roberta, please call the roll.
Right. Oh, I have to find you all on the screen again. Sorry. Okay, there you are. David,
Yes.
Rona,
Me.
I almost heard you.
Okay, yes.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Joe,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Mary Jo,
Yes.
Carlos,
We lose Carlos?
see if he's here.
It
I don't
looks like
see
he
him in the
did.
roster. I think he dropped, Roberta.
Okay, Eric
Yes.
and Ryan.
Yes. Thank you
All right.
all very much. Okay, moving on. The next one is the Affordable Housing Trust supplemental funding. I think maybe if Roberta, if you don't mind giving just a little bit of background, especially for the new folks on, we already made an allocation this year to the Housing Trust. How is this additional request, I'm putting in air quotes, come to us, and why are we considering it?
Yes. Sorry, I'm catching up because I was having trouble making the thing disappear from the screen.
All good. Sorry to put you on the spot.
No, that's quite all right. So in your meeting packet, under applications and fall report, I included the fall report because this provides an explanation of why we are increasing the housing allotment. So I'm going to share that so I can explain once more where the housing comes from.
Thank you.
All right. Are you seeing? Oh, I see. I have to. Now I get
Yes,
it.
we're seeing the report.
Okay, I just couldn't find the report because I had Zoom in front of it, but I figured it out. Okay, so Affordable Housing Trust adjusted appropriation. The amount that has already been appropriated to the Affordable Housing Trust was 2,630,071. And then in the fall, the budget was corrected because you may recall, and this is new for Rona, um, last year or this FY26 is the first year of the new CPA rate that was applied after Somerville voted to increase the surcharge rate. So the new rate doubled the surcharge, but when we estimated our revenue in the spring for the FY28 year, um, the the CPC approved a doubling of the revenue estimate, but City Council was actually given a lower revenue estimate that didn't fully double the budget. And later in the year, in December, the City Council voted to appropriate the rest of the funds that the CPC had recommended. So when we originally made the appropriation to the Affordable Housing Trust, it was based on the budget that the City Council had voted on, which was less than the full revenue that was anticipated for FY26. So um, the this that's what accounts for the FY26 corrected housing reserve allocation. So this was the allocation based on the city council approved budget. This was the allocation that the CPC actually recommended last spring. And so that's one reason for the correction. Also, this happens most years. There are extra funds that are, so we make a conservative revenue projection every year. And um, at the end of the year, we look back and see that we actually received more revenue than was anticipated. So that goes into the undesignated fund balance. And that unanticipated revenue, the CPC wants to maintain the proportion of last year, it was 50% going to affordable housing. So the total unappropriated revenue last year was 798,000. 50% of that is 399,000. So that would mean 399 plus the actual correct housing allocation equals 3.7 million. And you have already awarded 2.6 million. So that leaves a balance of 1,167,395 that the CPC would give to the Affordable Housing Trust to maintain that commitment of 50% or this year 55%.
Awesome. Thanks for describing that. And to be clear, this is separate separate from our ongoing discussions over the last several months of deliberation about how we make sure we're still keeping $750,000 of dry powder to roll into next year as reserve. This was
Correct.
never, these were not funds that were ever considered to be in control, putting that in quotation marks, because I don't ever consider the Affordable Housing Trust money to be in our control, um, which is why this is kind of an outlier. Anybody
Right.
with questions about this? I know it's a little, there's some history to it.
Just one thing that is this calculation unique just to the Affordable Housing Fund, or is there a similar adjustment to the other, to historic preservation and open space and recreation?
Um, so we've done it in different ways in the past. Before my time, they would do an adjustment and put money in each of the reserves to keep each of the reserves in balance. But in fact, the budgeted by trying to figure out the easiest way to explain. The Because the CPC is in control of how you spend the budgeted reserve and it's going to go to open space or historic preservation. Um, in a recent year, the committee agreed that it made sense to only um, only carve off the housing portion and to let the rest of the undesignated fund balance that's carried over be divided as needed between historic preservation and open space and recreation. So it just becomes a larger flexible fund rather than committing it in advance.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions here? Okay. Roberta, do we have, is it going to be two separate moves for this because we're pulling from two different buckets?
Yes, let me open the letter for that. Because you are pulling from the undesignated fund balance, you are going to vote to transfer the undesignated fund balance to the community housing reserve. And then you'll take a second vote to transfer the entire amount from the housing reserve to the Affordable Housing Trust.
Understood. So two votes, but one recommendation still.
Yes.
Understood. Okay. Could we just take a rapid look at the draft?
Yes. And I believe that this should be June 2025. You have a more recent one than 2024. Yep.
Okay. And is it in the community preservation plan referenced in the recommendation, the last sentence of it? We had a fiscal year 26 plan that this is
Yes, you're
pointing
right.
against, right? Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Wait a minute. So this is what's funny is that because um, so the 395 or 399 to be appropriated from the undesignated fund balance, that is to make the correction of prior year revenue, which is actually 50% is correct. So that is
Referring to
against
the old one.
the
I
old
see.
version. Yeah.
I see. Okay. Good catch. Okay. All right. Anybody else with questions or comments on this one, or can we move to a motion? Okay. I would love to invite a motion on the first portion of the recommendation to appropriate funds from the undesignated fund balance to the community housing reserve.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks,
Go ahead,
David.
All right. I will call the roll. David,
Yes.
Rona,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
John,
Yep. Yes.
Mary Jo,
Yes.
Carlos. Oh, he's still not with us. Eric,
Yes.
Ryan.
Yes.
All right, motion passes.
Thank you very much. And then I would invite a second recommendation to approve the recommendation of funding the amount described here to the Affordable Housing Trust via the Community Housing Reserve.
I'll do that. So do I have to say the whole thing?
Uh,
Sorry, say it again, Rona?
I'll recommend that.
You'll make that motion. Thanks,
Yeah, I'll make
Rona.
that motion. I move, what's the right language? Teach me. I move to award, and do I have to give the money?
I think you could probably just say, I would make a motion to approve the recommendation of funds being allocated to the Affordable Housing Trust as drafted, or something like that. Does that work for you, Roberta?
that works for me.
Whatever
All right.
works. So I move to recommend that the Affordable Housing Task Force will award what is anyway, I'm nervous. 1,162,30,95 as noted.
All right, very good.
I'll get
Thank
it better.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rhoda. No, all good. Appreciate it. Okay, can I have a second, please?
I'll second that.
Thank
All right.
you, Eric. Roberta.
Call the roll. David,
Yes.
Rona,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Mary Jo,
Yes.
Carlos. Oh, I keep forgetting he's not here. Eric,
Yes.
Brian.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Thank
Thank
you
you very
all.
much. Thanks, everybody. All right. The last one here is about the potential to amend the recommendation that we made on the Kennedy Schoolyard. This is the last item that we are, as of right now, considering for the fiscal year. I think important to this is understanding what we have that could be allocated to this and not bonded for, that would not put our reserve at jeopardy. So maybe, Roberta, if you don't mind, I think the balance summary of the budget document would be the a good place to see this illustrated.
Yep.
Do you mind sharing?
All right.
Perfect. Thanks. So, the way that so far we've approved everything that was in column E for remaining requested, right? That's the 1.46 is the sum of the three things that we just approved.
Yes.
So what's left is $421,000 in total for us. Then, if you scroll down, correct, Roberta, is that where we'll see the add back of the funds that we cannot touch immediately, but that are funding our $750,000 reserve?
Yep.
So can you just walk us through through exactly this, how you get to cell F15 that shows this $232,000 are potentially available?
Okay. So the potentially available for off-cycle funding is the available undesignated fund balance after having funded everything.
Mhm.
242,000 less, it's about a $10,000 difference. Um, it's it this is what's potentially available is based against the figure that is allowed to be spent in FY26. You elect a minimum balance of 750,000. So subtracting that $10,000, this would be the elected amount available.
And Roberta, there's in the budgeted reserve line, which is F5, that shows that we have $172,000 that we have not appropriated through this entire process. Would that not be in this bucket of potentially available for off cycle?
Yes. So the 242,000 includes is the sum of these numbers above. Um,
I don't think it is.
you're right, and I'm not sure.
So the 242 is the D7, 641,000 minus the 399,000 that we just funded to the
Mhm.
housing.
Yeah.
But the 172,000 above it is still, that to me is
Oh,
other.
I'm sorry. It's always hard to explain my math while
Mhm.
I am um, in a meeting.
No worries. I put
So
you on the spot again. It's my bad.
421,000 is the sum of all of these numbers,
Yep.
right? So the 750,000 is the minimum balance that you've elected for your undesignated fund balance.
Yep.
So that doesn't take the budgeted reserve into account at all.
Okay.
That assumes that the budgeted reserve is going to be all spent.
I'm sorry, can you say that again? Which number assumes that the budgeted reserve is being all spent?
740,000 or
So
750,000.
allocating that 750 is essentially spending our budgeted reserve.
Um,
Or
it-
is that, or do we have 1.5 and half and if we spend 750, we still have 750?
um, so this is minimum balance of the undesignated fund balance. So there's this amount we can't spend anyway,
And that's
but it's part
not
of the
included.
balance.
Sorry, let me just summarize what I think I'm seeing here. So the 740,000 is money that's not available to us this year, and therefore it's never been considered in the entire table up there, right? It's
Correct.
nowhere in there. So
Yeah.
that basically means that without doing anything, we could spend every dollar that is available to us in column B, right? Every dollar that we got at the beginning of the year, we could spend, and we're lucky that we're going to roll over just about what we want next year because it's coming from this bucket that we've never been able to touch.
Yes.
So that's all to one side. Then I'm seeing that we have $421,000 left in our pot this year, ignorant of the 750,000. So that's why I would expect the potentially available for off-cycle applications to be 421,000 minus that little $10,000 discrepancy between F14 and F13. Is that am I misunderstanding that piece, Roberta?
That's correct.
Okay, so cell F15, the potentially available for off-cycle application, sounds like that should actually be approximately $411,000, right? 421,000 minus the difference between the two above it. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Thanks for bearing with me and walking through that. So that's what is kind of under consideration here. If we want to amend anything on the Kennedy School, that's the money that's on the table. So our options are, I guess there's three routes for the 421,000. One is keep all or some of it for something that might come in the door the next 2 months or so that are left in the fiscal year, which we could still fund. We could do nothing with that money and potentially roll it over into next year, right? Roberta, that's in our realm of possibilities.
Yep.
And then the third would be to use all or some of it to award it immediately to the Kennedy School, reduce the amount that we're bonding, and reduce the burden on the next 15 years or so of this budget. John.
Two questions. So the first question is, when do we get the 740,000? Is that like right when the fiscal year turns?
I don't know exactly when we get it. It's when I think when the state um, approves the prior year's budget. So when the budget's certified from the
Okay.
prior year, then we can open up that like the locked piggy bank again and be able to use those funds.
So
Okay.
this would likely become available before we're deliberating next year.
Yeah.
Right.
Right? Okay. Sorry. Go on, John.
Thank you. That makes me feel a lot more comfortable. And then the last question, I know you already said it twice, but I really just want to confirm. So we have the $750,000 in our minimum balance that's not included in this spreadsheet. And then we have this 421,000 plus eventually that 740,000 on top of that budgeted reserve, correct?
So the 740 is part of the 750,000. So
Okay.
the 740 has never been included in the available undesignated fund balance. So cell B7 is the actual total undesignated fund balance is actually the B7 plus $740,000. So we took that out first.
Okay.
Then, but that money, as you said, will be available after the books are certified next fiscal year.
Yeah.
And so then I'm sorry, I lost the thread as I was trying to explain.
No, I think
Okay.
you really answered my question. So that 750 budgeted reserve encompasses that 740 we already
Yes.
That's
have.
right. That's
Okay.
right. We've
Um,
basically getting a get out of jail free card there a little bit, right?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes, that makes sense. Okay. Because I think the spiel I was about to give was just like $21,000 for whatever might come up kind of scares me because we have seen a lot of different applicants come to us over the years. So that does just kind of concern me. But knowing that we still have this budgeted reserve makes me feel a lot more comfortable. The last question I was just going to have was when do we find out what our like spending for fiscal year 27 is going to be?
So we'll have the budget to vote on in May,
Okay.
and I'll be developing that budget in April. The way that our schedule is going to work, and actually, one thing I wanted to mention is that we only have 1 or 2 months that we could accept an off-cycle application for the FY26. It's not even 3 or 4 because
Okay.
the the city council won't take up um, a financial item once they start the deliberations over the budget. So that cuts off the last month, and we have to give a full month before for the CPC to vote before it can go into the city council. So that means working backwards, the last really next month is the last month that we can receive an off-cycle application without having to bend over backwards to get it to city council in time.
Yeah.
I will make PSIF aware of that.
Okay. And
I'm just
that's
joking.
going to be in our application instructions going forward. I'm like really trying hard to map our processes against city councils so that we can be really transparent about our dates. And I'll more about that in the next item on the agenda. But yeah, I'll try to make that clearer that we have a deadline for off-cycle applications being in March each year.
Great. Thank you for those clarifications. And that was a joke, being entirely transparent. We don't have any things coming.
Understood. No,
But
thanks.
yes,
Thanks.
that makes me feel so much more comfortable spending down this, knowing that really there's only one month left in off-cycle applications. Thank you.
Agreed. Agreed.
So I'm still a little confused. So the 740,000, the F13 does include the 421 or does not include the 421? It does not
Um, 740 is not included up above at all. 740 was excluded from the available budget.
and that's a bookkeeping thing. And this isn't money. This isn't any of this. None of this has anything to do with projects that we've previously approved and are locked away, and we can't touch them because the
No,
projects aren't. So that's totally separate from any of this.
yeah.
So we're 10,000 short. If all the unappropriated funds in line 13, row 13, were pops in, we're 10,000 short of our 750 goal, but we've also got 421,000 from above.
So um, if we were to spend all of 421,000, we
Mhm.
would have 740,000 left.
40, exactly. Okay, I
And
understand.
if we want to have 750,000, then we
Yes.
have to subtract 10,000
10,000 from that 421. Yeah.
yes,
Correct.
that's it.
Yeah. Okay, I understand.
I'll
Thank
have
you.
to try to find an easier way to
Yeah,
represent
it
this
is.
next time.
Yeah.
Thanks, David. So I think the key question for me here, I mean, I personally am interested in effectively reducing the amount of bonds that we're going to have to commit to this project if we have the money to cover it up front. I know a lot of us that were on that December meeting were concerned and not overly enthusiastic about bonding for the entire $2 million that we were asked for. So, you know, up to $400,000, that's a pretty good, that's a 20% dent in the amount that we would be bonding and encumbering ourselves for years into the future. So, I'm curious to hear from folks if they feel like there's an appropriate amount, if they are interested in allocating some more of this right now to the Kennedy School program, if there's an amount or a percentage of this 400 and call it 411,000 that's on the table right now. What do folks think?
Has there been a kind of a paper analysis of what impact this would have on our debt burden? Were we to reduce the 2 million to 1.6 million?
That I have not done.
That
Because
would be
I'm wondering how big, because of the, the amortization schedules, all this, I'm wondering if we're talking about, $10 a month, or if we're talking about, $100. So, I mean, I'm trying to figure out the scale of the savings.
I would guess that over the life of the bonds, we're talking about savings in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, just in
Well, the
terms
other
of
thing that we discussed though at the
interest.
December, was it December meeting or the last meeting? Whenever it is that we and actually my I probably maybe I should have asked about it when we were going through the minutes, but I know we talked about whether all of that 2 million would need to be would they request it all at once? And Alan said no, they'd request it as they needed it, not in a million chunks, but in a couple of chunks. And then the other is, do we need to then withhold all the money as if they had requested 2 million, irrespective of whether they ever do or not? And I had thought the answer to that was yes, because we're obligating it, but the minutes seemed to say the opposite. And so I wasn't sure what the actual response to that question is. Do we need to, because if the city may never bond the 2 million, then again, I'm still kind of, and we don't have to, we only have to put aside money to cover what is bonded. Then I feel like that's also different. And all we're talking about is how much we're authorizing.
I would be happy to jump in and provide a little bit more context because I have a better cost estimate and a better phasing plan that we will be presenting at tomorrow's meeting about the Kennedy School. But I'll give you a little insider information. The phasing of the project is kind of doing the front half first. So the parking lot area, the stormwater infrastructure, that portion of it, we're estimating that to be about 1.2 to 1.3 million dollars. So looking at that, if we had this 1.4 million dollars in hand for this year, then we wouldn't need to bond until next summer when we do the second phase of the project. And at that point, we could look at CPA funds and potentially maybe never having to bond anything. But I think pushing us over the $1 million to the 1.2, 1.4 will prevent us from ever having
Yeah.
to
Okay. So
go and bond that because it would delay us a year and get us into the next fiscal year cycle.
yeah. No, that's a really important. Yeah, that's very helpful.
Thanks for that, John. So,
Given
Roberta,
that,
I'm sorry, go
yeah.
ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so given that, I think it definitely is worth us having this discussion.
Yeah, I agree. So, in terms of the mechanics of if we were to vote for X dollars today, how Roberta would it work? I'm basically kind of asking if it makes sense to do this in two parts over this month and next month as we zero in on the end of the fiscal year, but or maybe you're going to tell me that it just makes sense to vote once next month when we don't have any other stragglers coming in the door. We know we're not going to get any more out of cycle. just trying to keep flexibility a little bit. What happens with a vote for, say, I'm making it up, for $200,000 in additional funds to go to this project? What does it go to city council immediately? What happens?
And so we would send our recommendation to the city council, and we are asking them to actually, why don't I share this so that I'm not just reading it? We would be asking them. So I made this based on, I did the calculations that show here based on 400,000, but that's why everything is highlighted because those are draft numbers for you to play around with as you will. But the language shows that you would recommend that an amount be appropriated from the undesignated fund balance to the open space reserve, step one.
Yep.
Step two, to recommend that an amount be awarded from the open space reserve and some from the budgeted reserve for the construction of the schoolyard. So that's step two is to appropriate the additional amount. And then step three is to rescind the authorization to bond 2 million by the amount that you're increasing the budget to the amount that's left over.
Yep. Yep.
So
That makes sense. Okay, thanks for describing that. What's folks' reactions to this draft $400,000 number, which is effectively running us down to just the reserve that we've been trying to establish, the 750,000 rolling in the next year? Is anybody firmly against this allocation number?
I have a quick question, which is if we hold this till next month and know that there's no stragglers, does that interfere with the project?
Roberta, would this affect their timing?
um, no, I don't think that it'll affect the timing because that's why we rushed to approve the 3 million the first month that we deliberated, so that the commitment has already been made. They can go out to bid. And I would also note that there is 6,500 in the open space recreation reserve right now. So you could leave 6,500 in the budgeted reserve and still be able to transfer the 400,000. Just an option if it gave you any more comfort to leave a few more pennies available for any project.
Okay.
Would
How do
it,
how do folks go on? Sorry.
one more, I hope I'm not missing something, but when Rona had asked about what if we postpone just a month, is it going to throw anything off? Would it throw off the bonding? If the timing on when those bonds are being floated or whatever, if it would be a different figure if we gave this money, but they're not going to know that because we won't do it for a month because we're going to think about it. Am I missing something?
Great question, Mary Jo. So, if we were purchasing one product that we had to pay for a bill, for it all in one lump sum, then yes, it would be a problem. Because we're not doing that and we're paying the contractor in pieces, it's not really a problem as long as they don't do all the work in a week,
Un-
which I don't expect them to
Understood.
do.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Mary Jo. Okay. My feeling personally is that this is something that, per Rona's comment, I don't think we would need to debate very much next month because we've talked about it. Hopefully people understand the foundation for it, but I do think seeing if anything else happens over the next month, if it's not going to hurt the project, I would be interested in moving this to next month. But what do folks think?
I just have one question for Roberta. So, City Council, I know it just went through Finance Committee on Tuesday. So, City Council's going to vote on it this Thursday and approve it. And then we'll just come in next, if we do vote for it next month rather than this month, we'll just come in with that amendment language.
Yeah.
And it's just as simple as that, just probably going back to Finance Committee, then back to City Council.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
But,
So I'm comfortable with either option.
but if we vote on it tonight, then presumably we can avoid, would they be able to be on, finance has already voted on it, or they haven't yet? They're voting on it.
Finance Committee voted yes on it
So, okay,
yesterday.
so, right, so we can't change it probably before this Thursday's meeting, no matter what.
Right.
Yeah. So no matter what, we're asking for an amendment on what city council has already approved. We can't get ahead of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So that makes delaying a month even seem less pressing because we can't change the course of that anyway.
Okay. Anybody against waiting to take a month, waiting to take a vote on this until next month?
For John, which is that if we don't vote on this tonight, does it affect the momentum of your presentation tomorrow?
Oh, no, not at all. They
Okay.
already are very grateful that the CPA awarded this project and are very excited about it. So that won't concern them at all. I think Finance Committee will be excited to see that we'll be bonding less. I will say just that we have a full agenda and we'll definitely have a lot of things. So if we're all feeling excited about voting for this, we can strike one thing off of our agenda next month if we vote on it now. But happy to postpone until next month as well.
Thanks, John. All right. Well, if there's no strong feelings about voting tonight, then I think I would be in favor of pushing this. Roberta, do we need to vote or do anything to let it
Nope.
slide?
I will let
Okay.
it slide.
Okay, understood. Well, thanks everybody for going through that exercise. It'll make next month, in the event that nothing comes in, it'll make it a short and sweet conversation. So thank you. All right, let's move on as we head down the home stretch. The next item on the agenda is to approve the grant general agreement conditions. Roberta, do you want to talk us through this?
Yes. I feel like we're not at the home stretch. So I would love to cover a lot of material in a very little amount of time. So I am going into the meeting packet and looking at so I gave two sets of general conditions, one for city projects and one for outside grantees. And so these, based on the recommendations given to us by the consultant we spoke with last month, we've added some language. Something just happened to my file that is, I don't know why it changed. Okay. But I think it's okay. I'm going to share the screen so that I can show what I've inserted into this language. And what I would look for is for the committee to make a final decision the um, about the length of time for the clawback and accept any other comments that you have. So most of this has not changed, but I've tracked changes and included comments so that you can see what has been added and why. So we've added a section to ensure compliance with the Secretary of Interior standards, which is required for historic preservation projects to be eligible for CPA funding. And then the consultant's recommendation was this language for clawbacks so that they're required to maintain the asset as improved for a period of so many years, um, or the money will have to be returned to the CPC. And there's a step down to the clawback. So if it's within 5 years or however many years you want to say, it's 100% less than that, 10%, 10, like 75% and so forth. And then there's also, so I've created a section, a template that's for historic preservation projects, and then a template that I would use for open space and recreation projects. So for example, this would apply to the Housing Authority project, which is one of our first open space and recreation projects ever on non-city owned property. So similar commitment to maintain improvements, borrowing that language from the historic preservation. And then we have also added here the commitment to maintain recreational use, which the CPC added as a routine condition. So I've transferred that routine condition into our general conditions so we don't have to keep making that anymore. And then there's an assignment provision. This was also recommended by the consultant. The assignment provision says that if you sell the property to somebody else, it still applies the requirement to maintain the asset as improved for so many years. And if we can't come to an agreement to assign that responsibility, then the buyer just has to repay the funds, um, and within the same step down period. So that is, and there was one other minor thing which we may not need to make a decision about. We can just include it because the consultant's argument as to why this was needed is why not? It maybe one day it will help. Might as well have it than not. So the question for the committee and the memorandum of agreement for the city is very similar, maybe identical. Additions, treatment of historic preservation versus open space and recreation. I did not include the requirement for under open space and recreation commitment to maintain improvements for 15 years. I didn't include that on the city memorandum because I didn't want to make an assumption about the lifespan of the improvements that they're making. For example, we funded a pollinator garden at Morris Kelly Playground and it may be that they need to change the plantings. So I didn't want to get too much in the weeds over what it means to maintain the improvements. If you disagree with me, I could put that into the city's memorandum of agreement. But I did include the commitment to maintain recreational use.
I think that makes more sense. I'm definitely concerned because there are some things it might prohibit us, like if there's ever some like cool temporary activation that the CPA wanted to support. I don't want to scare away any of that. So that's the only hesitancy I see with this, but it seems like there's a
Yes.
good workaround around that.
Yeah, it does say commitment to maintain recreational use unless the community preservation consents to allow the city to retain the funds. So that would be the out if this is intended to be a temporary installation. Um, I think the CPC would need to determine whether you feel that it's eligible. I think there are some instances when a temporary installation could be eligible. So I think that's something that you would want to determine up front. And if not, then you might be able to put it, or if it is eligible, you might want to put in the site-specific conditions um, that it will not be required to be maintained for 50 years. Like you might put an exemption in the condition.
That sounds great.
I had a question. As long as you're right exactly in this place on the 5 year, 10 year, 15 year. I will defer. When I look at that, it makes me think that it's like from 15 years forever, it's 50%. But I'm assuming if it's 15 years plus, it's zero. And I'm wondering if
Oh,
anyone
it's
else.
up to 5 years, it's 100%. Up to 10 years, or from 5 to 10 years, it's
I
75%, and
just
from
so
10 to 15, it's 50%. After 15, it's zero.
right. So do you think that for clarity, it should say 15 years plus zero? I mean, just to
Or you could,
not to make it seem like well, maybe to me because yeah, it also maybe just because the way my mind works, I would kind of like to see it say, from zero to, greater, less than or equal to 5 years is this, 5 years, greater than 5 years to 10 years is, you know what I mean? So that it's really clear how the bracketing is. But I mean, again, if no one else thinks that that is potentially confusing, it's not saying I'm gonna throw myself on a sword over.
no,
Uh,
David, I was catching that. I did interpret that after seeing it, but I was thinking it should either say like 0 to 5 or 1 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 15. Um,
and then you could even have 15 plus a zero, just to be really
mhm.
clear. But I don't know if you.
Because the other assumption that I was making when there wasn't a category was that in between those steps, you could assume that it's a percentage between 100 and 75.
Mhm. Right.
So I'd like to leave well, I'll add that for
I think
clarity, but
that's
I'd like to leave the
Yes.
language, the wordsmithing to our law department. But what I'm particularly interested in from the committee members is the number of years. Do you agree with 15 years? Do you feel that it should be longer?
what I recall from the presentation they made was that I thought that they were recommending that it be kind of based on the life cycle of the improvement. So as opposed to a one size fits all. Now, again, I don't know if that's worth the trouble of trying to figure out, and if the city is comfortable capping it at 15, maybe I'm fine with that. But I mean, I guess I was thinking I liked it somewhat being geared to, the life cycle of whatever the improvement was, you know.
And do you think 15 years is long for that, or was the
Well, I
impression
think
that
it
15 years is about right?
Well, like for example, if you're talking about like I don't know, I don't do home repairs that often. How often do people, how long is a roof expected to last?
Yeah,
If a roof is expected to last for 15 years or 20 years, is it reasonable for 15 years that we want 50% of our money back when in the
yeah,
16th year they may have to replace it anyway?
good point.
I think that there's a very strong argument for having
Yeah,
standardized general conditions.
yeah.
So if
The
you feel that 15 years is that you'd rather keep it shorter so that it matches the lifespan of a typical improvement, that would um,
yeah.
that would make sense.
The other thing that I would consider is the language that you put in the open space one, which is that last sentence where, unless the community preservation committee consents to the party retaining the funds. And basically give us the opportunity forever to change our mind about it, and let them
The
make the case.
the historic preservation one is not use dependent. That's like use is not the
Yeah,
basis of historic preservation grants, whereas it is the
yeah.
basis of a
Yeah,
recreation grant.
right. I understand it's not a perfect match, but I was kind of thinking the same line. We were talking about this in the context of the Buddies grant last time too, which is, you know, give us, use mays when it comes to us and musts when it comes to, the grantees. Um, so that we're not, so we give ourselves flexibility where legally that's permissible.
Mhm.
That's the nice thing about being the regulator.
Yeah. Anybody else with feelings about the 10 versus 15 conversation? Seems, Roberta, that seems like kind of the crux here.
Yeah.
Well,
The the consultants had offered 15 or 20 as being typical lengths of time.
I was gonna say, from a parks perspective, I feel like 15 to 20 years is average. Obviously, if it's like a basketball court, like there would be need to be some resurfacing and whatnot on that, but some other playgrounds, Kennedy School's meant to be at least 20 years.
Yeah.
So I do wonder, Eric, from like a historic preservation kind of, I'm looking at it from the lens of parks, and parks are a little bit more durable, I feel like.
Yeah, this
An
is
as
pondering that.
yeah, an asphalt roof might be 15 years, but a slate roof can last like 80 years. So, and siding should last more than 15 years. And like the kinds of things that I've been seeing from this cycle are all pretty durable things.
If we're putting money into preservation stuff that's not going to last 15 years, then we're not spending it right. Like that, I mean,
Hey,
like except for paint jobs. But do we even fund paint? I
it's a
think we
good,
don't.
it's a good point, Eric.
And also, it's sort of to me the return tapers off pretty quickly. I think at the core of it, we don't want someone just to take the money and turn around and make a profit off it. But if someone 12 years in decides to sell it, I don't think they're realizing that much of benefit
Well,
anymore from what we gave them, unless it's a new elevator,
right,
but that's public.
right, and that's why I would like to give us the authority to say, never mind,
Yeah.
close enough,
Yeah.
and not make them give us back 50% of it because they sold in 12 years instead
Yeah,
of 15, and we couldn't negotiate something with the new owner.
I agree with that, dude. Okay. Well, I mean, I'm hearing that it sounds like 15 may end up being a happy spot for folks here. I hear people throwing out 15 to 20. I'll say from my perspective, the it sounded like the consultants who did a great job were definitely coming at this from I mean, clearly given their job, but coming at it from a protective place. They talked repeatedly about protecting assets from developers looking to move quickly and get out of the restriction as quickly as possible, as long as we're not deterring good applicants that would otherwise be doing something that is good for the city by having a perceived to be onerous requirement. As long as we're not doing that, I don't have an issue. I think, Roberta, I asked you the question: have we heard from folks in community outreach that the clawback period or the restriction period is keeping people from considering this a usable source? And it seemed like you had not heard that necessarily.
I think that the clawback period, this approach is going to be easier for people to work with than the requirement for a permanent deed restriction. So this is an improvement over our program guidelines
Yeah,
previously.
yeah.
But we did make an offer with a clawback to the owner of the Adams Morgan house, and they balked at it. No, I think was that 25 years or 50 years?
50 years, and that was clawback for any sale of property
Right.
within 50 years. So it was essentially making it a long-term loan and not a grant.
Right. But obviously the proof will be in the pudding. I mean, if we put this out there and then we try and award grants with this and no one takes it, then then we know
Yeah,
it didn't succeed.
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. You're right. Okay.
I'm good with 15 years.
I am too.
Any
So,
other specific? Go on, Roberta. Sorry.
oh, thank you. You go ahead.
No, I was just going to say any other specific spots that you want us to plug in here, Roberta, to kind of debate a little bit, like specific go no go. I think there's a lot of pieces to this, so I don't know what your
Yeah.
approval or not approval looks like.
The only really specific thing that I wanted to have the committee debate aside from giving feedback, if you had any other comments that you wanted to raise, but that the period, so you're settled at 15 years. And if you're satisfied with these general agreement conditions, I would ask for you to vote to approve the general conditions for grant agreements and memoranda of
I had
agreement.
one other thing that
Please. Oh, to David Friesen.
and granted, I haven't gone
Oh,
through it
okay.
all with a fine-tooth comb, but paragraph 11.
Mhm. Yes, and this should have been highlighted
Say it.
as a change, requirement to commence work. The
So
grant,
so we've been putting very specific language in the grant agreement letters.
mhm.
Does this supersede that by just saying in a reasonable time?
So this adds it within the um so within the recommendation letters, we have for outside entities, they're limited to a 3-year contract. So they have to complete the work within 3 years or come back and ask us for an extension, and then the city council has to grant the extension. But we added to the city projects that requirement because the city didn't have the same built-in 3-year. But this is a requirement to commence work.
Commence work.
So this is what the consultant added was this requirement to commence work is saying that you can't just wait until. So, for example, the Hispanic Association waited for um, 3 years before they started their project as they were figuring out how to piece the elevator together. And so this would prevent situations like that from happening again. Again, it does also prevent opportunities that they had to um, sort out the problems with their project without losing their funding before they got it working. So it is a question, I'm glad you caught that, of whether you want to include that requirement to commence work.
Well, I don't mind a requirement to commence work, but I don't know what in a timely period means.
Yeah,
And,
agree.
I mean, now, yeah. I mean,
I
if it,
see it's duplicated down here. That's why it's not a marked change. It
oh,
showed
okay.
up in two places.
So I certainly, I actually had thought even the 3-year language that we negotiated was to commence work, but you're saying it was that to complete the work? What we
For
did
the city
for the
projects,
city one?
for the
It was
city
to complete it.
project. I'm sorry, I'm over talking you. For the city projects, it was 3 years to make substantial progress or come back and explain yourselves.
Okay.
Um, so it left discretion on both sides, but it also gave us some legs on which to call them in and ask for an explanation if it was lagging, and maybe ask them to consider canceling the project. Um,
Yeah. I'd be interested in what my colleagues think. I mean, I don't mind because like you say, if we have the language in there that they need to make substantial work or have, within 3 years, either have, you can only have a 3-year contract or have substantial completion within 3 years. It does mean you don't know how far behind they are until that 3 years has happened, where of course having something saying and you need to start by X gives you a little bit more surety that things are moving. But then I think that your start by X needs to be defined a little better than timely, because it seems like that could be anything up to including 3 years.
yeah.
Rona?
I'm wondering if we can solve David's problem by adding something that says they'll be required to report back within X amount of time, maybe 12 months or something for reapproval.
Or just a report on progress made.
Right. Something like
There,
that.
there is an annual reporting requirement. I'm not sure where to find this in here, but we do ask that they uh, provide annual reporting.
But does that give us teeth to take it away?
It doesn't give us teeth to take it away.
I don't think, I mean, to speak for myself, I don't think we would after 1 year if there's plenty, I mean,
No.
even if they haven't done anything in 1 year. But I think the point I was hearing was that it was just so we're not surprised. It's not after 3 years, it's not the first time we're hearing about it.
Which we're not, because there's a report.
Right.
And this, I'm not sure that this gives us teeth to take it away
Yeah.
either.
Uh,
It
My
just says,
first instinct was to remove this,
yeah,
but I put it in anyway because they recommended it and they thought it would be useful. So I don't know whether
I-
your instinct is different from mine.
yeah. My instinct is to remove it as well, actually. Or define it better, but even if we defined it better, I think that having the work done by the date and not have, the city sitting on our money for, 5 years is really more the goal than making sure they start in 6 months.
Mhm.
I think I think it was a bigger problem, of us being kind of treated like kind of a piggy bank that they could set aside, and then work on what they wanted to do. Um, you know, then I am concerned about exactly how expeditiously they begin it.
Yep, there are many reasons for them not beginning it expeditiously. Often has to do with having to assemble funding from other sources, to negotiate with their vendors.
Right. And all of that kind of makes me wonder how much this language adds to that.
Yep.
Well, I'd love to hear from other people then.
I'm indifferent about it, and so for that reason, I think striking it would be fine by me. I don't think it really adds anything to what we're saying elsewhere in the documents they'd be signing on to. It's just
I,
me.
I think I would concur with that. To me, what's the most frustrating thing about it, not the recipient's intention, is that if they drag it out too long, they come back to us a couple of years later looking for more money because it took them so long, and we're sort of on the hook already because we already started the process. So we might as well give you another $300,000. And
Yeah.
but this doesn't really stop that from happening, except saying that they have a clicking
Yeah.
ticking clock.
Yeah. All right. So I think it sounds like that we have critical mass on that one. Are there any other hot spots you want us to plug in on here, Roberta, before we
Nope,
move to approve this?
nope.
Okay. Got it. Anybody else with any other comments on what we've reviewed here?
And this vote would be just to have legal to send it then to legal for their review.
So legal has already reviewed this, so this
Oh,
vote would be to adopt these general conditions.
Oh, one other question is that this consultant is still um, working on this project. So is
So
there a chance that they'll revise this as part of their final work?
no, this was one of the deliverables, was giving us the language to put in these conditions, but they have other deliverables which are not related to the conditions.
Okay, so this is set at this point as far as they're
Yeah.
concerned. All right.
Okay. If no other hot items here and folks are comfortable, can we have a motion to accept this as drafted with the edits made in this session?
I can make that motion.
Thank you. And a second?
I'll second it.
Thanks, Eric.
All right,
Roberta?
let me call the roll. Michael, I'm sorry, my I just went right to him. David,
I wish I had more time to look at this. I guess I'm looking into this.
okay. Rona,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Mary Jo,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
and Ryan.
Yes. Thank
Thank
you.
you. And I
Well,
would just say, David, if you go back and read it and have comments, send the comments to me. And if it's a really minor edit, then I may be able to work it in and report back to the committee next time. Um,
Missing a
so,
quotation mark in the first paragraph.
okay. I'll take another look. There was something funny about it when I opened it, so I don't know. I'll take another look at it. But thank you all. Now I needed to ask, I should um, for a hopefully quick vote to amend the recommendation for the 12 Pleasant Ave project, which you approved. The city, you awarded funds to last year with the condition that they have a permanent preservation restriction, because that was our policy, our guideline at the time. And now with the new guidelines would work much better for their project as an affordable housing project that may be condoized after completion of the improvements. So, if you would consider amending the recommendation for the 12 Pleasant Ave to apply the new conditions in place of the original conditions.
and this will be moving from a permanent affordable restriction to
The,
the 15, the what we just discussed.
yes, and I will share that recommendation. So, oh, this is the wrong Elijah Walker House, but it says Elizabeth.
Yeah, I noticed. I caught that earlier too. I don't know if that's just an editing
Yeah,
thing.
I feel as though somehow I'm not sure what. So this is maybe I have to hold on to this until next month. I hope that they'll be okay. I'm not sure how language from a different one ended up in here because I definitely wrote language around, oh, amended their
Okay.
recommendation for the, okay, I see. I pulled up the wrong thing. So it's not this amount of
Well,
money for the Elizabeth.
no, I think it is that amount of money, but I think it just shouldn't be to the Elizabeth Peabody House.
Right. Okay. I don't know how that jumped in
Yeah,
there. I
yeah. And
don't
my guess is
remember.
you just cut and pasted it from
Yeah.
another one.
E- yeah. I'm just not sure when
Yeah,
to the
right. But I
Somerville.
did check and I checked somewhere else and the 365 seemed correct.
Okay. Thank you for that. Okay. So the new funding conditions would be that they consent to general conditions provided in the grant agreement, um, and the affordability restrictions on at least 30% of the units that's related to the nature of this specific project.
Okay. And the general conditions and it'll be a new grant agreement or it'll be a replacement of the conditions that were in the original grant agreement.
They've actually never signed a grant agreement
Oh,
yet with us
okay.
because in part of trying to resolve this issue
I see.
and also for reasons that they were putting together their funding and negotiating with their vendors.
Got it. Okay. I have no issue with this. Does anyone else?
Yeah, I think 15 years is sort of short for an affordable housing.
So the affordable housing restriction will be a permanent restriction.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah,
misunderstood.
the
Okay.
15 years will only apply to the clawback for the historic portion of the.
And it's
Good clarification, Ronan.
And it's in
So,
the same increments as what we just discussed, as the 5 year, the 10 year, and the 15 year.
Yeah.
what would the condition be that the if it's permanently affordable, what could possibly happen that would trigger that 15 that clawback then?
Um, if
Sell it to,
they if they were to
Sell it.
Rip out the historic siding that we helped to fund.
that
oh,
exactly.
if they
Yeah.
undo it, yeah. Of
If
course,
they un
it's in a historic district, so we wouldn't, well, I guess it's up to them.
They could also sell the project.
and if they sell the project, the buyer would have to agree to maintain the windows that we paid to install.
Or they'd have to pay us back
That's right.
Yes.
per the other policy.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay. Anybody not okay with this or want to talk about it further? All right. Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve this as drafted?
I can make that motion.
Thanks, John. And a second.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Rona.
All right. Calling the roll. David,
Yes.
Rona,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Mary Jo,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
and Ryan.
Yes.
All right. Motion passes. Thank you
Thank,
all.
thank you very much. All right, we're into our final couple of minutes here. Roberta,
There-
any do you,
Just,
I'm sorry?
there was another document in that same folder.
Yes, the other document that was in the folder was for your reference. You don't need to vote on it, but
Okay.
since you had made a condition that referred to the new conditions that hadn't been written yet, I wanted you to see what it looked like with the new conditions applied.
The only comment I'd make there is you may want to change that 5, 10, 15 year language to match the language you just put in the
Yes.
new.
Yes, so thank you. I will go back and edit a couple of things based on the changes that you discussed.
Right, and the timely period language is in there too.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So, and I understand that we're very close to the end of our time, and I don't know, I don't want to stop you from having the time to make decisions that are in your purview to make, but I would like to maybe just run through with you what the decisions are, and we can decide how urgently they need to be made.
Sure, let's go for that.
Okay, so the first thing that I wanted to do was talk about, let me share the screen. The next thing that we need to do is to approve the funding application for the next fiscal year. And the funding application, I have prepared all the instructions, all the materials. Those are in the meeting packet. No major changes from before. So I've tried to tighten some things up and make the explanations be simpler and easier to understand, but the procedures are still the same. Except I wanted to ask if the committee would consider um, changing the funding cycle for your application year, which is somewhat of a big change. And my inspiration to do this was over the fact that this winter, the city council took 2 months to be able to approve the recommendations that you made back in December. So trying to avoid that again, I wanted to see if it was possible to move the application cycle forward, which would allow the committee to make all of its deliberations before the end of the year, so that we don't have a turnover in the middle of our deliberations again. And then deliver the recommendations to City Council early enough in the year that they could approve it before the end of the calendar year, and we don't get caught in that gap. What that would mean would be to end our practice of having a summer hiatus because our busy season of reviewing applications would be in the summer. And instead, you could take a hiatus at the end of the year. November and December only meet if specific projects items come up that need your attention. So that would mean that the eligibility determination forms, if we adopt this new cycle, eligibility determination forms would be due in May, and the full applications due in July, and presentations in August. And in order to do that, I feel as though we do need to release the application instructions with your approval this month so that people would have time to to begin filling out the applications within this cycle.
Okay, so that's the most urgent item would be an approval. I don't know if we need to vote for that in order to release the application materials as drafted, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Roberta, two quick questions. Is it basically shortening it by 30 days compared with prior years as far as when our final decisions would occur?
I will open the draft application cycles, or the application instructions, I mean. The current system has the applications in July, so it's up by 2 months.
2 months, okay. And then does this have any bearing on any off-cycle applicants? Do they have an elongated period of time? Or do they somehow have to fold into this same shortening?
So the off-cycle applicants, as I've determined, I think this is going forward always going to be the last day to submit off-cycle applications will be March 15 because of the City Council's budget cycle. And we will not be able to submit any applications to City Council until after our until September. So there'll be a blackout period from March until um, in if they can yeah, March until August, because I think we can submit in September. So we can approve an off-cycle application in July. We just won't be able to have it in front of City Council until September.
Okay. And the application materials to release, is there any change to them versus last year, excluding the schedule and I would guess the grant conditions?
So I've updated them to reflect the new grant conditions. And the grant conditions themselves are actually in a packet that's called the application supplement that's referred to on the front page here, so that they know in advance what they're signing up for before they apply. They can see everything that they'd be agreeing to. Other than that, I think I've just no major changes, just updating and simplifying the language to try to make it easier to understand. I did reach out to prior applicants and asked for their feedback on the application cycle. And even some of the applicants who are less experienced with grant writing said that our process was really easy to work with. So I don't think there's a need for major changes.
Okay. That's good news. Okay. Are folks comfortable voting to at least sign off on the release of these application materials this month, or at most just sign off on this revised schedule? Anybody that would not vote for those two things?
Have you gotten a sense whether, I mean, the reason I assumed that we had taken August off was because it's, peak summer and people have travel plans and are out, is that, besides potential being inconvenient for us, is that inconvenient for applicants?
Uh, So this is your opportunity to speak up if it's inconvenient for you. I haven't asked the applicants. I
Yeah,
have the
right.
sense that most of them are year-round organizations, so
Yeah,
they probably need to assign someone to be present. And August 26th, since our meetings are the last week of the month, that's pretty close to when people are
that's true. That's
returned.
true. Yeah. And again, just to be clear, so the purpose of this is for us to have everything done a couple of months earlier and to the city council because of how long it's taken them to act on our.
Yes. So there a couple of advantages are that we can submit things to the city council for their approval before the end of the calendar year. So to do that, I would need to submit the items to city council Oc by our October meeting to be guaranteed to be heard by the end of the calendar year. If the CPC needs to take more months to deliberate, it's possible that a November item could get to City Council before the end of the calendar year, but anything in December would definitely have to wait until January to get on their agenda, and then sometimes it takes a while to catch up. So that's
And
what I was aiming to avoid.
And Roberta, the other benefit here would be that we would minimize the situation that Rona has found herself in, which is coming in to vote on things that she did not hear presented originally. So by doing this, there's still the odd chance that something might roll into the new year for a final vote. But by and large, we would aim to be done by the end of the calendar year
Correct.
to avoid turnover. So that to me is a big benefit as well.
Additionally, just from the city side, from public space and urban forestry side, having it moving up a little bit is a lot more successful for us. Allows us to put projects out to bid in the early winter after city council's already approved it, rather than waiting until late winter to put projects out to bid. So I know if this challenger shifted this way, my boss would be very pleased.
Okay, well, these are all good reasons.
Thanks, John. Okay. Well, if nobody opposed for any reason, am I able to get a motion to approve basically this entire funding cycle document as drafted?
I can make that motion. Sorry.
I'll
Thanks,
second it.
John. Thanks, Eric.
All right, then I will call the roll. David,
Yes.
Rona, we lose Rona. I'm going to stop sharing so I can see you all.
She's trying.
Okay,
I don't know, my microphone's not working well.
gotcha. All right, Joe,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Mary Jo,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
and Ryan.
Yes.
Thank you all. I'm relieved. Thank you so much for making it through all of that tonight.
Excellent. No worries. And we'll review the public and stakeholder engagement schedule next time. Is that still pending, Roberta? Or was that included?
So we will have some upcoming outreach events over the next month before our next meeting. So I would encourage you to take a look at that schedule that's in your meeting packet. And please let me know if there are any dates that you can join me at any of the upcoming events this month. I would love to have your company at some of these events, but we don't have to talk about it in the meeting right now. I
Understood.
could actually create a doodle poll so that you can see if other people have signed up for those events. That also works.
Okay. That'd be great.
Yeah, I would like to sign up as a third, just because I don't know what I'm doing yet.
Oh, it doesn't take a lot, so
Okay.
well, it'll work out well.
All right. Anything else, Roberta, for us to discuss before we move to adjourn?
That's all I have.
All
I
right.
see David talking. No,
I'm
All
fine.
right.
Could
Thanks, David.
Could I
John?
just give one quick plug because you
Yeah.
guys fund the project? So we're having our community meeting tomorrow to present a preferred design on the Kennedy School. So this is more on the playground. The parking lot's kind of already figured out. That's going to be phase one. But very exciting plans and diagrams of the Kennedy Schoolyard future playground tomorrow at 6:30. It's on Zoom. So, but there's recording and plans up on our webpage if you want any other information.
That's awesome. Thanks, John. Wish I could be
Thank you.
there. All right, gang. Can we have a motion to adjourn, please?
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
And a
Can second
second.
that.
Thanks, John. Britta?
all right, David,
Yes.
Rona,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Mary Jo,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
and Ryan.
Yes. We are adjourned. Thank
All
you
right.
very much, everybody.
Thank you
Thank
all.
you.
All
Good
right.
luck.
Take care.